The Black Garden by Dark Law. In the heart of night where shadows dance, there blooms a garden, rich and vast, a place where love and truth entwine, entangled roots and vines divine. Beneath the moon's soft silver light lies hidden paths to endless night. Here whispers echo, raw and deep, of love once lost and secrets keep. In every petal, stories bloom of passion's fire and tender doom. The thorns may pierce, the darkness calls, yet in this garden no one falls. For in the shadows truth is found, in whispers soft, yet so profound. The black garden, where hearts are bared, a place where souls are deeply shared. In the deep dark soil of night lies seeds of hope, of wrongs made right. Here in this garden, lovers learn that from the ashes they can burn. With every step the light may fade, yet in this place foundations laid. The black garden where love takes root in soil rich with life's pursuit. Through storms and winds, the petals cling, and in the darkness, hearts will sing. For here in shadows, truth does start, the black garden where we find our heart. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Creative Dominion podcast with your host, Dark Law, and welcome to Black Garden episode 10 with wonderful Stacy Vanthuyne out of Alberta, Canada. And so, again, Black Garden series is debuting September 2024. And so can't wait till you guys listen to this episode. We're going to bring down the house with this one. And so, Stacy, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you tell the audience a little bit about you?
For sure. I mean, as I said, I'm a creative being of two daughters. And for a long time, I identified as just that, like a single mom at a corporate job. And my purpose in life was to create a life where my girls felt loved and had opportunities to grow and expand their own self. And one day it came to a place, my to-be then mentor asked me, "What do you want?" And I instantly went into telling a story about how I want to continue doing what I'm doing to be able to provide this life for my daughters. And he stopped me and he said, "Well, that's a great life for your kids. And that's a great dream for your kids. But what about you?" And I was just like, my gosh. And I was about 40 at the time. I'd just gone through a divorce. And I realized one of the reasons why I felt stuck and unfulfilled was because I didn't have a dream that was for me. And that then led me on this path of self-discovery and mindset. And I've always been a people leader and change management for over 20 years in corporate. Love that. Love seeing people be their best selves. But it was time I put those things into practice for myself. And that's where I'm at now, where I'm an entrepreneur who helps people to unlock, unleash, uncover that magnificence within those people such as myself who are high performers, but just got comfortable. And regardless of our age, where we're at, that we still can go from good to great too. So it's my passion to help people to elevate and to create more wherever they're at and not just settle for what we have.
Awesome. And again, welcome Stacy to the Black Garden, the Creative Dominion Black Garden series. And so like I start off with every episode, again, we're going to come at you from a place, a specific place. Love what Stacy mentioned, self-discovery and living your dream. Again, she said not the dream for her kids, because a lot of times, I'm a single father as well, twins. A lot of times, yes, you always want to put your kids first. Obviously you have an obligation to put your kids first. But again, like she said, what about you? And so as I challenge the viewers and listeners here today, I want to encourage you to take something that resonates. Not everything is going to resonate with you, but take one thing and apply it to your life daily to become the best version of yourself and to create the dominion of your own mind. And with that being said, before we get started and go inside Black Garden, I want the viewers to look in the mirror and ask yourself one question. And that question, I want you to think about it throughout the episode. And the question is, what about you? The question is, what about you? And how far are you willing to go to believe in yourself? And so we welcome you, all viewers and listeners, into the Black Garden as we're going to go over um, Stacy's personal story of finding herself within marriage and self-discovery, and through some of the trials and tribulations she's faced within her story. And so buckle up, strap in, get your gardening tools out, and welcome inside Black Garden. And so, Stacy, can you tell us a little bit, start from the beginning of where your mindset is, where it was when you first got married, and how you went through that journey?
I'm so glad. You know what? And I actually was in my 30s by the time I got married. Here's the thing, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be a mom. It's just something I wanted. And I remember when I turned 30, my career was doing really well. I've always been a sports enthusiast, a fitness enthusiast. And so when I would get stressed, I'm grateful that I always had fitness as an avenue, kind of lift my spirits. Let's say that. It was something that I did for me. I would get the endorphin run and I would love that. But I did find myself after a while, I kind of jumped there, like not just getting fulfilled with that, and found myself like shopping more and gossiping more, having more wine. And, I think a lot of us just come to think that that's normal, and that when you get a certain age, you just have to the cards that have been dealt to you. And I guess that was kind of part of my mindset. But yet, I always had been almost like an unconscious confidence. I knew that I could get to a certain level in corporate, like just subconsciously I knew that, but I never dreamt of more. When people ask me, what do I want? I would say, I want to have a life that my parents gave me and a little bit better. And one day I woke up and that was exactly what I was living. But about 30 years old, I'll never forget this, because I think it's amazing how you have these emotional impacts that play out and you don't even know that until after. Kind of one of those Steve Jobs says, you can connect the dots looking backwards, but not forwards. When I turned 30, my dad, was like, I'm really close with my parents. He gave me a card, and inside of the card was raisins, if you can believe it. And you're probably all wondering, why raisins? Now, he said to me, well, honey, I was watching Oprah, and they said that you have a certain amount of eggs in your body, and after a certain year, they start to die off. So I'm just wondering, like, when are you going to give me these grandchildren? And there was my brother and myself were 2 years apart. Neither of us were married and had kids. He's like, we've done what we need to do. Like, we got sent you guys to university. You guys have your own homes. You're working now. Like, hey, what's the next stage? And I remember thinking to myself, like, that I've been in love before, quite a few times, but there was always something that I wasn't willing to negotiate on or sacrifice with myself. And I would say, no, and I would break up those relationships. Well, here I am now, no lie, within a year and a half of that moment, and kind of having this emotional impact about the raisins. I had met my ex-husband, was married, and was pregnant. And I, you know, I had my two daughters, and within a 3-year span kind of thing. And at 36, I found myself just not totally fulfilled. Kind of, when you were saying that we have this obligation to our kids, there's part of me that agrees with that. And back when I was in my 30s, I would have absolutely agreed with that. But I think that we first have the obligation to ourselves. And I started to believe that if I put myself first, that was selfish. But yet it was necessary, because what was happening in my relationship and with my kids, and then which ultimately was trickling into my work, was I was pouring from an empty cup because I was never filling mine up. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap of people pleasing and wanting to make sure we're liked, and, that people say nice things about us. And, every time we do that, we don't realize it, but we're giving away our power to say, wow, you perceive me is more important than how I perceive myself. And I even kind of did that with like making the decision to get married and have my family, because I knew even when I was getting married that I had loved harder. But I remember thinking to myself, Stace, maybe this is the reason why things haven't worked out in the past is because you haven't been willing to negotiate or to, sacrifice some of the things about yourself that you should. So, is it really that big of a deal? The man you're marrying doesn't really like people and going out, and that's one of the things that gives you your energy. And I just thought, I'll get my energy from those other sources. But really, what I was doing was allowing my circumstance at that time to be more important, and that my parents wanted me to have kids, than really connecting and following my own heart. Now, I don't regret any of it, because without it, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have my two beautiful daughters. And truthfully, my ex-husband and I have an incredible relationship. But we had to go through a lot of it, because what I found then was we weren't strong communicators. We both put our kids before our own relationships. And slowly over the years, we started to spend less and less amount of time connecting and having intimacy and meaningful conversations. And our conversations turned more into about the kids, about finances, around arguments. And I'm a talker. So I ended up then going to my friends and talking to them about my concerns. And I've thought to a place, honestly, where I felt like my friends knew more about me than my husband and how I was feeling. It was a really roundabout answer, but what I ended up doing and finding myself was resentful of him at times. I was exhausted. And although I didn't have a breakdown, because one of my mantras are, you don't have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough, feeling like my spiritual strength was nearing its end. And I just remember thinking, is this as good as it gets? Is this all that there is? Is that I'm working and I'm making a good salary, and I'm coming home and I'm fortunate to have two beautiful girls, and I'm fortunate to have this house. But if you don't love it and you're not in love with your life, then what's it for? And I wanted to leave that relationship, but I was scared. I'm from a big family, as I was sharing with you before. My dad's from a family of 14, and and divorce and being from Catholic just wasn't part of what we did. But I ended up choosing that. And I chose that to help me in the end. But how I got there was kind of messy. So I'm good to dive into that if you want. But I just want to kind of pause there and ask what questions you have from what I shared so far.
Awesome, awesome. And what she's saying, I hope you guys were listening. And she spoke on two things that I think men and women in today's society. One she spoke on is the fear of disapproval. Again, the fear of disapproval, and the comparison game, right? What my parents think if I get a divorce, or fine, dad, I'll have kids and get married. And I want to speak on that really quick before we dive into how she got through her eventual divorce. And what I want to speak on is sometimes we have to separate the love our parents, family, and friends have for us, or care they have for us, from our expectations of ourselves. Again, you have to separate the love that the love and care your family, friends, and children, etc., may have from the expectations of yourself. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times, and it's not just with having kids, getting married, it's, going to university, going to college. Some people you might be viewing and you might resonate with this, regardless of your age. I really didn't want to go to college, but my whole family graduated from Harvard, and I felt like, I was, again, like we spoke earlier, obligated to get a degree. My family, my parents I come from a two-parent household. Um, they're both wealthy or well off and married happily with multiple children. I'm obligated to find my husband or wife and follow in the footsteps of what I grew up with. And so I just want to encourage the audience that you have the power to decree the domain of your own mind and follow your own journey. It's not your parents' journey. They call it your legacy for a reason, not the legacy of your aunt, your legacy of your best friend from high school. It's not the legacy of parents. It's your legacy. And so I just want to encourage the audience to don't be afraid of disapproval. Everything, every dream, every goal that you have, everything you want to, every obstacle you want to overcome, every choice that you want to make does not have to be dependent on how your actions will be viewed by those around you. And like the reason why I said separation is because sometimes we think if we do the opposite, if you tell your dad, I don't want to have a family, I just want to be by myself my whole life, you mistake them caring and loving on you for resentment, right? You think, oh, if I tell him that, he's never going to talk to me. He's going to stop being my dad. He's going to stop showing up for Christmas dinner or, showing up for family gatherings. And he's going to disown me because I don't want to get married or have kids or go to college or buy a house or stay in the same. And it could be as simple as staying in the same city where you grew up, right? Your parents might be, you have to understand your parents already lived their life. What I mean by that is, they're at a place of establishment, regardless of their age. And you have to find, I like to compare it to birds, right? When the bird egg hatches, they get their children, the baby birds up to a certain level to where they can fly by themselves and they kick them out of the nest. And so another question I want to pose to the audience as you're looking in a mirror and listening to this and viewing the episode is, have you been kicked out of your own nest? And what I mean by your own nest is the nest of your own mind. Have you allowed yourself to grow? Are you allowing yourself to live? Are you living by your own expectations, or are you living by everybody else's expectations that you think they have?
I love everything you're saying. I think it's so important to ask because I don't even think that we stop to consider it. Like it was just expected that, and I know we're not alone with these people, that we do what's right? We get through high school, or what we believe is quote, quote, right. Go to the university, get a job, buy a house, get your check marks that so-called define success, get a steady income with a pension. And that's how I found myself, is all these things. And I always laugh because, like, did I think that once I was earning over $100,000 in this role, that what? The stars or the clouds would part, the sun would shine down on me and like, you've arrived. And yet I never realized what was filling my cup up until then was I wanted that. I did want that. But I never dreamed any bigger than that. So once you've achieved that, if you haven't dreamed more bigger, or if you're not living for yourself versus, to your point, you're living for your parents, your spouse, your kids, then our souls aren't meant to be boxed in. What gave me that happiness was fulfilling that dream. And then I didn't have any other dream than what I had achieved. So no wonder my soul felt boxed in. And then it started to look at the other thing of, oh, well, I must be dreaming for my kids, or I must know that's their dreams. And I think that we get in this place that, we tell people one of our dreams and they may think, well, that's stupid, or you can't do that. But to your point, they're only saying that because it's not their dream. And our parents, if they, if you're close with your parents or your friends, they're just saying those things to keep you safe. They don't, like, I remember when, my parents were very supportive through my divorce, but when I changed my careers from leaving this corporate safe job with a strong pension to like launching a new journey on my own in entrepreneurship, I remember my dad saying, I just don't want you to be disappointed. And I just looked at him and I said, don't you get it? Like, by not trying is going to disappoint me. I've never lost, but I've also never been able to bet on myself again. And just because I'm at the age of 40, just because I'm turning that age doesn't mean that my ability has changed. I'm only allowing my current circumstances to hold me back. I didn't know when I was 20 how I was going to get to a place to achieve what I achieved, but I believed I could. And I am. So all that's changed here is I haven't dreamt bigger than what I've achieved. And it's time we start to do that. And so I love what you're saying, is that it is around that fear of disapproval or that fear of disappointment that keeps so many of us stuck. And I'm grateful that I had confidence and belief in myself to then even at least leave my marriage finally. It wasn't the courage I wanted to by leaving. I'll dive into this and be vulnerable that, I looked outside of myself for support. So it didn't happen overnight. This was not a one night stand, but over a series of a year. So I developed a relationship with another person. I don't think that having sex with a person defines when I cheated on him. I was literally confiding and falling in love with somebody else and wanting to create a new life when I was still locked into my own. And, I always say I never regret having an affair because it made me realize that my spark could be relit and that there was more than just being a mom and this wife and stuff. I didn't have the confidence in myself to do what my heart wanted, which was just to say, like, it's time we go our separate ways. We're better apart. And I found that courage after I fell in love. And I think it's very indicative of many of us that we look outside of ourselves for the answer, and dependent upon that situation, then that will determine our choices versus following our intuition and trusting ourselves and saying, you know what, you've got to do this. Because what ended up happening for me when I had the affair is then I also had a ton of guilt and shame because, I lied and I cheated. Two things that I was very, you know, I wouldn't say are characteristics of mine, but I did them. And I've done lots of work to let that go because just because you did something once doesn't define you. But, if somebody at the time when I was going through this would have said to me, "Hey, Stacy, I don't believe that you believe you're worthy of what you want. Hey, Stacy, I don't believe that maybe you have the confidence that you need to create what it was." I would have told them they're full of shit. I would have said, "Well, look, could I do so? I believe I'm worthy. Like, look what I do. I run fast in my marathons. I take good care of my kids. I'm a devoted, sister and daughter to my kid or my parents." But the truth is, I didn't lack self-confidence and I didn't lack the feeling of worthiness for my current results. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted something different, and there was a gap. And, we just aren't taught that we have to work internally in order to create that external world. So I think we learn that a lot, but that's where I say we don't have to go through those things. And that's why I'm grateful to share on this, that if you're like, learn from my experience, if you know in your gut that it's not a situation you want to be in, no matter how hard it is to leave because it's harder. And life was never guaranteed to be easier, but it was harder to live a life where you're not fulfilled and you're feeling resentful and not being able to shine your magical self than it is to stay trapped and just be afraid to do something.
Awesome, awesome. And I love what you said there because you said something that we'll get to and dive deep in. That's really deep. And I hope the viewers heard that, but I'll reiterate that here in a second. But what you're saying again is don't be trapped in your own mind, right?
Mhm.
Follow your heart, follow your intuition. And a lot of times we're taught to just react off emotion and not actually, sit down and make logical decisions. And the encouragement I have for the viewers is, and it's the trend throughout the Black Garden, finding the light through the darkest places in your darkest moments is figuring out what do you want. Again, you even know what the heck you want.
Right.
Once you find that out, and then again, that's a journey in itself. Or like you mentioned in episode 9, find out what you don't want. What don't you want within your life or within your relationship, especially. A lot of times, like we mentioned earlier, you settle for, oh, this person does, for example, like you said with your ex-husband, oh, he doesn't like to go out and communicate and be a friendly, bubbly personality, but you are, and you just said, oh, well, again, like you said, oh, my parents want me to get married, so I'm going to, just bite the bullet, right? And take that, take one for the team, right? Oh, he doesn't like to talk to people, but it's fine. We always say, it's fine. And I just want the viewers to know you have the ability to shape your own life. If it's not the person you want to be with, you have the power to decree that dominion of your mind and say no. A wise woman once taught me no is a complete sentence. And so you're allowed to say no. And so like I know you guys are listening and like, ooh, this is getting good, this is getting real deep inside the black garden here. We're cutting a lot of thorns here. Thorns is cutting. So one thing Stacy said that and I hope you guys heard that, but I'm gonna reiterate it. She said it wasn't two things she said, but the main thing she said was it wasn't the actual act of sleeping with another individual while married that started the affair. It's the process to get to that point. And then again, I hope you guys are listening. She said it wasn't the actual, a lot of time we see the movies, we see the TV shows, we read the books, you see the Tyler Perry, the bridesmaid, whatever shows you, TV movies you watch. We always think of, oh, you cheated or you had an affair. We always think of it's just the physical act of, kissing and, being in the bedroom, right? But again, what she's saying, and it's the process. It's it's the confiding in someone other than your significant other or spouse. It's it could be as simple as a hug that lasts too long, different compliments. A lot of people nowadays, it's, the text messages or the DMs or the different, all the things, right? It's not just hey, we met at a hotel, or my husband took a business trip out of town for a week, and the kids were at their grandma's for the all week, and I had the house to myself, and we had our one couple hours of fame, and that's it, right? It's the process that led to that. And then I'll let you dive into your story and rock and roll. But also what she said as she's telling her story on this, what she said is she was able to find herself within one of her darkest moments of her marriage. And so I'll let you rock and roll, going deep inside that.
Well, it really does go back to that question about what you want. And I think that a lot of people may say, and I was in this situation where I was like, I don't know what I want. But the reality is we do. We're just sometimes afraid to admit it to ourselves because of fear of judgment, or that it might hurt somebody, or that, because we haven't achieved it to date, is it even possible? And yet it was like really about stripping down and getting like really real with ourselves. I love when people say, like, just be your authentic self. I was honestly like, who the hell is she? Who is she? It's been 40 years of masking myself to fit into groups, to do what's right in these situations, to make these decisions. And, I am somebody that has a ton of energy. And what I would do was shrink my energy into, you know, fitting in. And even though I would consider myself a leader, it was still not always my authentic self, because sometimes it was too much for people. And so then I would, instead of just finding a bit different room, would go back to them and think that there was something wrong. Or for me, I would have more wine, I would smoke a joint, I would do these things that wasn't in alignment with, my true authentic self, to be okay, quote, quote, with the moment, instead of recognizing, I love how you say you're the master of your domain of your mind. Like, we just weren't taught that. And that's really like, when I did get divorced, I started to go within to say, I'm surprised that I acted in that way. I'm surprised that I did have an affair. And it's like neutral, like just kind of like, why? What has happened to get here? What is that I had to believe was okay or not okay, or limits about myself, that why I chose those options, I guess, versus thinking bigger, why I didn't have the honest and real conversations with the people I needed to make a different choice on my own. And it was like then that I really started to dive into personal development, was to like get reconnected with who am I and what do I want? I'm more so than just being successful in corporate and raising two girls. Like, how do I want to show up? I remember like one point was, I remember thinking like, I can't be in a relationship that I would tell my daughters not to be in. I don't want to be in a relationship where we don't hug and kiss and it feels like eggshells around them. I don't want them to see this because then they're going to think that this is normal. This is not normal. Well, it might be normal, but it doesn't mean it's right. And I just see so many people that, what's realistic may have been, well, Stacy, costs a lot of money to get divorced and kids cost a lot. And, we'll wait for the kids to do that. I've heard all of the excuses and they're just that. They're excuses. Because if you want something well enough, you make the decision and have that standard of yourself to take different actions. And like I said, yes, it may be harder and maybe it is a little bit more financially strapped, but don't give up on who you are because of your current circumstances. You can overcome that if you believe it, but if you don't, you won't. And I just, like I said, I think that I realized I was unconscious confident that, hey, Stace, everything that you've learned, you've done, you just need to get clear again with what that is that you want and who that is that you need to be to have that. And, it's like I said, when I really dove into the power of the mind, my past, when you're ready for it, the teacher appears, so to speak. My past crossed with Bob Proctor from The Secret. And I did have a dream that I was ignoring to myself, which was I always did want to be a consultant and go off and help companies become more performance based. And when I was listening to what they said, I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to be around these people, like get into different rooms with different thoughts and ideas. And it was then when I decided to take a significant risk on myself and invest, $40,000 to work with Bob. And as a single mom that could only had $5,000 in her account at that time, that was not realistic. That was not logical. But I realized in order to get different, I had to do something that was illogical, because when we do things that continue to be realistic, that's in alignment with our current thinking. And it's that thinking that got us these actions. And so in order to get different actions and different results, I had to embrace the illogical. And honestly, that's when I just freaking let's do this and started to really get back in touch with my energy, with the awareness of where I was shrinking and not even realizing it, and overcome some, beliefs that a lot of people had, but they just didn't have to be mine anymore. They served me to a point, but they weren't going to propel me into the next dimension of what I wanted to create.
Awesome. I love how you said that. And I love, again, what she's saying is take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Take a leap of faith, not for your kids, not for your parents, not for your friends, not for your coworkers, not for your best friends since high school. Take a leap of faith for yourself to change. We've always heard, quote, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And one of my favorite movies, The Equalizer, Denzel, the lady that was in trafficking, she was sitting at the little diner table and saying, I don't know how I can change, or I don't know what to do. My world's not like yours. And he looked at her and said, change your world.
Yeah.
And we always say, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. If those 5 people aren't, who you are authentically, or don't emulate or represent and support who you are authentically, then it's time to change your world. And so for those out there that are, listening and wow, you have such an impactful story, and they're saying, how do you avoid the red flags as you were going through affair and things of that nature, what would you say to those people, and how to avoid even the starting of the talking and kind of leading up to?
What I came to realize in hindsight is I just stopped trusting myself. And so, you will tell you, I've come to learn now we have our mental faculties where we create from, right? But we've been just conditioned to live by what we can hear, taste, touch, smell, and feel from our outside senses. And so so many of us become a victim to our environment. We blame things. And yet we would never call ourselves a victim. But it is the question, was I going to be more addicted to the suffering and victimhood, or am I going to actually take a step outside, get uncomfortable to create differently? And if that's why I'm so passionate about what I do today as a performance coach is, recognizing that we have our imagination, we have intuition, we have perception. the ability to see things differently. We have reason, the ability to think. We have our will, the ability to focus on different things. Everybody is so busy being busy because they don't know what they want. I believe there's so many parents being so caught up on their kids' lives because they don't know what they want. And so then they make excuses of it. Well, it's your job to raise them till they're 20, 30. It is not. It is your job to raise you. It is your job to stay focused on what is you. And through that example, they will bring out the best in them. We are creating a victim society right now. It is comparing always to what other people are doing versus comparing yourself to how you were yesterday. So when you ask me what red flags, I would ask yourself to say, well, what did I do today that I'm proud of? What is something today that, maybe I'm not, I know it wasn't in alignment with who I am, and ask yourself why you're doing it and stop. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling resentment, that's a choice. We're choosing that because we're engaging with a certain experience that we know in the past, or we're trying to almost rationalize ourselves or feeling, but all we're doing is putting energy into more what we want. Well, guess what? We're going to attract more of the crap. And we have to start to allow ourselves to imagine, take the lid off, so to speak. A question you may want to ask, and I love the questions you're asking people already of what about myself? And if I wasn't afraid of being disapproval or hurting somebody, what would I want? If money was no objection, what would I want? And allow yourself to ask yourself those questions, because it's only your current circumstance that's keeping you trapped if you allow it. And some people will say, well, how can I forgive? Well, you just let it go. Well, that sounds unrealistic. That's not how it is. Well, it is the truth. It is the truth. But you have to let go of it. And then you have to have a why of what you want that is stronger than staying where you are. Otherwise, there's no incentive to change. So this is where we say we want to have these goals where if you know how to achieve it, it's too small because it's not, and there's no growth in that. And the whole part of us, I just jam out on being spiritual people, right? We're spirit having a physical experience. This is why when people hold you back, when you're in these smaller rooms, that you start to feel boxed in. Your soul wasn't meant to be boxed in. It was meant to expand for further expansion and growth. Everything that always is always here. It's about us raising our awareness to figure out how to do it. And as we expand our awareness and figure out more, we become more engaged. And yeah, we'll get things along the way. But the getting is a gift. Those are just a bonus. It's who we become in the process. So even for myself, even being an entrepreneur, hey, that was great to go here, but that's not where I stop. Now I think about adding impact. How can I add more value? We're all created here. I love when you were saying earlier, what's the legacy you want to leave for yourself? How many people have actually asked that question and answered it? How many people actually have a goal that they've written down and look at every day? We have to realize that we know, and as we get older, we acquire more information. So people will listen to personal development, people will listen to podcasts, but then they get frustrated because nothing changes. Why? Because it's not enough to know. If it was, Bob would always say, if it was just about knowledge, librarians would be the richest people in the world. It's not about acquiring information. It's about repetition and creating a new identity, a new story of yourself that's in alignment with it. So you live, feel, and act from the goal before it ever transforms into your life. So if you want to feel more love today. You want more money? Feel abundance today. We attract who we are. Our thoughts become things. And yet so many of us spend more time thinking about what we don't want than what we do want, and then wonder why it's coming in your life, because that's what you're thinking. And so for me, it was just around really increasing this awareness, asking myself why I believe certain things, just recognizing that just because I had a belief in the past doesn't mean that it has to be true. I get to choose that. And I don't do it with shame. Like I said, you just kind of recognize it and you say, well, that's nice. Thank you for bringing me to this spot. But now I don't need to know that anymore. I'm going to create the space for a new thought and identity to come in. And, when people say, well, then it's faking it till you make it. It's not faking it till you make it. Because when you make a decision Like, what is a decision? Decision is that you made a commitment to go after what you want. You already see it in your mind. It says, no shit, no kidding, no matter what, it's already done. You release the expectation of it, and you are. And just because your physical world may not show that that is, maybe you don't have the $1 million in your account yet, maybe you haven't met the person of your life, you're not in the shape of your dreams yet, you can't get it unless you live from that place. So then I live from my goal achieved. And I ask myself, what would be the beliefs I'd need to have? What would be the standards I would need to have? What would be the identity I would need to adopt? And I start to create that now. Now I'm on frequency, what it is. And I'm all of a sudden tuned in to new things, like I said, that were always there. I just wasn't tuned into. I didn't see it. And I think a great way of maybe relatable for people is, when you buy a new car and you never see that car on the road, but you buy that new car and instantly it's everywhere. Well, it always was everywhere. You just hadn't activated that reticular activating system, part of your brain, to like create that new neural pathway to see it. So that's what it is like increasing your understanding and your awareness of you, and you realize like you're freaking perfect. And it's only the limitations and the beliefs that are holding you from becoming more. So like I always I go to my chest, if you're listening to this right now, like ripping open my shirt kind of thing, because it was like I literally had to peel away each layer to go deep. And I'm not done. Like it's not just because you're aware, then you're aware. Like it's something we need to work on every day, because if our identity sets the limits of what we'll achieve, once I achieve that, I gotta raise up my identity. I constantly have to be working on my level of confidence and my understanding and awareness of who I am, because my goals get bigger then. And if I could do them, I would have that confidence. So it's like a matter of like, I just think that's the beauty of it. Like that's what gets so exciting. It's just like, am I kidding me? Like there's no end to this, only the one that I choose to accept. Yeah. Okay, well, let's freaking roll, right? Like let's rock and roll. So I know I unloaded there, but I just get so excited.
Awesome, awesome. I love you said it, and what she's saying is one thing as you look to what she was saying is you can't accept the role without the responsibility, right? And so when you're accepting that dream or that goal, for example, if you want $1 million at your bank, you also have to think about the responsibility of that and live in that before you get it. And then once you see the deposit clear, and you see that $1 million, and when one day you're gonna check your account on your phone or wherever you're at the ATM, and it's gonna say $1 million. What will your mindset be like when that happens?
Yeah.
What will
your mindset and your actions, right? Because I also don't want people thinking, I know you know this, Darren, and you act that way, is like even you taking the action to create this incredible podcast in the 3 series. Like you didn't know how you mentioned to me, but you knew you were. And you did, because you start to adopt different actions. And I think a lot of us go to adjust the actions, and for a short time that will work. But the actions are an output of the paradigm, the habits, and the belief, the identity you hold in your subconscious mind. So it's really about rewriting that story of you. And then as you do that, then you start to say, well, what actions would I take differently? Because it isn't just about, I want people to think that it's just like I visualize it and it happens. I mean, anything is possible. It's about that you visualize it so much that it becomes who you are, that you act in alignment with that. You take different action steps that ultimately get you different results. And to your point, the first thing you have to do is take absolutely 100% responsibility and accountability for everything. You no longer blame. You just look at it as, more do I need to do to create? What additional value can I give? And live from there. And I think that's just so important. Like, again, it's with my kids even, right? Like right now, my daughter would be like, you said this, you made me feel this. I go, I didn't make you feel anyway. You chose to feel that way. And I may have said that, but that's maybe not even like, let's use our perception to see it in a different way. And, is there a different lens that we can come from? And I think that's where I've adopted the belief of I want to fall more in love with my future than the memories of my past. I'm more willing to fail at my future self than to succeed at myself. And really, for success, we need to know 2 things. We need to know where we are and be brutally honest with where ourselves are. It takes a huge amount of courage and vulnerability to be open and honest with ourselves of where I'm at, and then where do I want to go, and then recognize that difference between where you are and where you want to be will cause you to stretch, will cause you to get uncomfortable. But that's where the beauty lies, is in the unknown. And that's where the magic is created, is in the unknown. So if you just bet on yourself and you believe in yourself that can happen, then, you don't look at it as failing when you fall down. It's either I'm winning or I'm learning. I'm winning or I'm learning. And even when I'm learning, I'm winning. So it's like really taking a different mindset to the actions that you end up. Okay.
Awesome. And to add on to that, basically what you're saying also is faith without works is dead, right? Again, you have to have applicable action when you're speaking and when you're having those thoughts and those affirmations of, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire. Hey, I'm going to be a CEO of my own business or my own company or whatever goal you may have. You also have to, again, you have to act on the faith that you think is going to happen. And to add to that as well, you also have to put into place your future and your present. And what I mean by that is, you have to first you develop the mindset and the faith. And then once you do that, like, okay, what steps can I take daily to inch closer and closer? It's all about the process before you get to the prize, right? It's just like a lion hunting. It's not him catching a gazelle, it's the lion, the hunt, the pursuit of the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And another question I ask yourself, and this goes right into the Black Garden, dating and relationships, specifically on relationships. Are you enjoying the process, developing and becoming the best version of yourself in dating and relationships? Let's say you're single on here and you're listening or viewing. Are you enjoying, or do you love the pursuit of that perfection that you want to achieve in your life? Are you in pursuit of that significant other or that wonderful husband or wife or significant other that you say you want? Do you even want what you say you want? That's another great question. Do you even, once you figure out what you want, then you have to, a lot of things that I'll give everybody a quick cheat sheet, right? Once you find out what you want or what you think you want, then you're going to be tested to see if you really want it. And that's where those different trials, tribulations, and, the depression and the obstacles, that's where those comes. And the question you have to ask yourself, are you going to overcome them or are you going to fold? I always say, stretch or get smoked. Are you going to stretch and, become better, or are you going to get smoked and get left in the dust?
Yeah, I love so much what you're saying, and it really is that, like, gaining that clarity and being honest with ourselves is very, it comes to, it's like, what do I want? When it comes to relationships, I think we've been lulled into this belief that, okay, so I grew up in the 80s, and when Jerry Maguire was coming out as, like, one, it was an emotional impact of, like, seeing the girl come out and she says, "You complete me." And I think, like, for a lot of us, we believe that in order to be complete, we had to find that other half. When it's really about, I complete me, and you help to bring out the best of me. But with you or without, I'm bringing it out anyways. But it's somebody to enjoy life with. So a lot of people, I find, they do the hard. They get out of one, but then they find the exact same person just in a different body. Why? Because they haven't leveled up who they are. They blame it on the other person versus, like, what did I do to create like that? And that was a big thing with my ex and I. Like, I had to, like, it wasn't him. Like, what did I need to improve about myself? What did I need to believe in myself to find happiness in a next relationship? I would encourage you guys, if you're listening and relationships is a goal of yours, is to write out, what are the characteristics of somebody that I want? And then ask yourself, are you them? Because you can attract somebody that you're not, and start to date yourself. It's not another person's responsibility to make up your shortcoming or to make you happy. It's yours, and we want to live from a place of overflow and being grateful for, yes, what I have, always gratitude, I think, is the foundation. But then from there is like, I had to get over the belief too that if I wanted more, like I said, that I was guilty. But that just because I want more didn't mean that I wasn't grateful for what I have. It's just that there's realization that I'm capable of more. And so, when it comes to relationships, is that you've got to be there for you first. It's not another person's role to make you happy. It's only our role to do that. And I think that a lot of us, say, my partner did this, or they're not doing this, and therefore they're making me feel this way. Again, you're making me feel that way. It's not their expectation to do it shouldn't be their expectation, your expectation for them to do it. You should have that expectation of yourself. Again, like I'm sure you too, you see it all the time. We see people and then they settle for it because they go, oh, I guess this is as good as it gets. Same with the job. How many people over COVID time have left their jobs because they say they were stressed and overwhelmed and everything, and they get another one, and guess what? They still are stressed and overwhelmed because they never actually dealt with what was behind that, which is how they show up. That they're still doing busy work versus knowing clearly what they want, and then living with deliberate intention, living from their future self, prioritizing what they want over what's expected. And that doesn't mean you're rude. I think that we think that people think they're rude. No, that means you know your boundaries and you act from that place of alignment, of authenticity that so many people claim to be. But then when it causes them to step outside, or somebody might point or say something, then they shy back. As long as you do that, then you're always will be a victim to your circumstance.
Amen, amen. And I love everything you're saying. Again, I hope you guys are listening and tuning in and really catching what she's saying. One thing I'll say before we kind of wind down here is you owe you.
Yeah.
Nobody owes you anything. You don't
That's
owe
right.
anybody anything, but you owe yourself everything. And so with that being said, can you give the viewers any last tips, motivations, how to, maybe there's somebody listening that said, hey, maybe I'm stuck in this marriage that I don't want to be in and I really want, or maybe they're just took the leap of faith and left and are still trying to find themselves. What is some motivation and tips that you can continue to give, and then tell the viewers where they can find you?
Sure, I'd love to. One thing I'm doing right now, and I guess this is why, I practice what I preach, is I'm writing every day for 30 days a letter to my future self. I'm saying, dear Stacy, it is December 31st, 2024. I'm so proud of everything that we've accomplished over these last 5 months. And then really articulating what it is that I want, and then thinking, how would I show up? And really, you ask yourself, how did I get here? It's almost like a reverse dream. How did I get here? Who did I speak to? What action did I take? And just really let that. And again, it's living with intention, being clear with what it is. So I think that's the first thing, is just get clear with what it is that's in alignment with your heart. And if you were like me, I always say, hi, Stacy Vanthuyne, like recovering people pleaser. And I think there's a lot of us out there that are that. But just love yourself for that. But then say, if I could dare to dream with no limitations, what would I want? And then start to talk to yourself from your future self. Your future self would, not get insulted when someone gives you feedback. Your future self has so much more wisdom than we currently have. A lot of us don't achieve our goals, not because the goal was too big, but because we allow ourselves to continue to look at our present results. And so we lower it. But keep that goal high, and then just ask yourself and journal to yourself, even 15 minutes. And if you can't take 15 minutes out of your day for yourself, then you need it even that much more. Wake up 15 minutes earlier. Think of one habit, just one. Don't try to change everything. Check one pinnacle habit that if I did this for the next 90 days would make a difference. Maybe that is, I'm going to stop negotiating with myself. I'm going to keep the promises that I make to myself. I'm not going to allow my current circumstance to determine what I want. But one habit, just one. And you work on that for 90 days, I promise you, You will see a world of difference. It's that 80-20 rule, right? Like a lot of us are doing 20% of what we do gives us 80% of our results. Do we even know what that 20% is? And if you just focused on that 20%, right there, you could 10x your life. You have to buy into the belief that right now I could 10x my life. And ask yourself the questions, because change starts linguistically. And the more powerful the question we ask ourselves, and the more powerful the answer, and just kind of lean into that. Get your analytical mind out of the way. Do it in the morning. Hey, future self, proud of you. What are the steps I've taken to create what it is? Who did I surround myself? What rooms did I get into? What investments did I make? Those types of things. And of course, if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram and or Facebook or LinkedIn at Stacy Vanthuyne. My company name is also Raise Your Results. So my website is www.raiseyourresults.ca. But maybe hopefully you'll put some links in the show notes. But again, feel free to reach out. And if you dare to dream, I promise you I have a safe space where there'll be no judgment, just love. And sometimes you just need that person to believe in it. And we see you already at a high self. So if you can dream it, you can be it.
Awesome. And so just to recap, I encourage all the viewers to, again, dream about your future self. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you the 80 or are you the 20? Again, are you the 80 or are you the 20? And again, I appreciate everyone joining Dark Law and Stacy here today out of Alberta, Canada, inside episode 10 of The Black Garden. I hope the thorns didn't cut you too deep as you're reviewing and listening out there. But again, as always, it's all love, and hope that you take, I'm sure there's multiple things everyone can resonate with, but I hope you at least take one thing to apply daily to your life and to create the dominion of your mind. Again, are you the 80 or are you the 20? Think on that and make the necessary changes, because again, if nothing changes, nothing changes. This has been Dark Law and Stacy inside Black Garden. Appreciate everybody buckling up and enjoying the ride. And until next time on the Career Dominion, we out. Thank you.